Welcome to Strength Through the Struggle, delivering hope and wisdom through real stories of perseverance and heart. Join in as we go from tragedy to triumph with the true tales of ordinary individuals overcoming extraordinary odds by never giving up on themselves or their loved ones. Now here's your host, Mark Goblowsky.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Strength Through the Struggle. And today we have an amazing guest. He's a neighbor to the north of where I'm at. He's from Canada, actually. I'd like to welcome Mr. Len Wright to the show. Welcome, Len.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate you having me on this morning. We're going to have a blast.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. We had a great conversation last week, one-on-one, so I'm really looking forward to today. Hey, can I share your nickname with everybody?
You sure can, man.
This is actually Zen Len, and I love that name. Not just because it rhymes, but that whole idea of Zen and getting kind of, mellowed out and centered and focused, maybe. I think we could all use a little bit more of that. What do you think?
Well, definitely. And, it is tongue-in-cheek, anybody that knows me really well or even has talked for a while, because I am an intense individual. So it's not necessarily the Zen that comes up right away, but it was a nickname that was around and it did flow. And really it is my kind of Zen in that way. And it's, it's more of a realistic Zen in that, we're not going to be walking around like monks all the time.
Yeah.
In that way, we the difference between the Zen monks and us is we actually are in the real world, running businesses, having families, dealing with conflict, dealing with people all the time in different stages. Whereas a monk, it's hard unto itself, but at the same time, it's a lot easier in my books to be able to go and sit in a cave and meditate when nothing's coming in on you than trying to run and grow a big business or a business of your own with a family and blah, blah, blah. I mean, those are the pressures that it's talked about in a lot of holy books, walking in this world, but yet not of this.
Right. I had a great conversation with a young Catholic priest one time, and he said, and he was in a monastery for a while, and he said the thing that he missed most once he left the monastery, what he realized he really missed was just that calm rhythm that they had throughout the day. Everything was predictable. And it was just this nice, smooth, peaceful rhythm. And I think in our everyday life, that's really kind of tough for us to manage, is a smooth rhythm.
Yeah, well, and you there was one word in that, in that little thing that you said, that little part that you said that really is the key there. And you mentioned everything was predictable there.
Right.
Well, and that's creating an environment that can't be carried out all the time. And that's really, it leads in really well with what we want to talk about today and with struggling, is because of the fact that is what struggle is all about. We predict, or we want a predictable environment, living life. And that is not life. Life is not very predictable other than the seasons, but you don't even know if that day what it's going to be like. Exactly. The seasons still have their own control. And so when you say it's predictable, it does give you a sense of security in a way. But at the same time as having that sense of false security and having that predictability, you can't have growth there, because growth is out of that chaotic will of free will. It's not out of a predictability plan that you open a book and, exactly, this is what I do and this is how it's going to exactly turn out. The recipes for life are very different than what most people are living. And so as you were talking about that gentleman, he missed that because that was a predictability. Predictability is not something that lasts forever. You can't. And it's false, because we all have our plans in our day and our weeks and our months and years and everything else, and we think it's predictable. Yes, I'm going to go to work tomorrow. Yes, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Yes, tonight is this. Of course. But we lose contact that we don't have real control over any of that.
Yeah.
At any given time, it could be our last breath.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And so the myth is thinking that we have all this control. and then putting our faith in that. And it's a false
Faith in our control, faith in the thought that we have control.
In the false thought that, yeah, we're in control.
Right.
And then we get this false sense of security, this false sense of comfort. And it's actually a negative or a bad thing for us because of the fact that it limits the amount of growth that we can have. And it's a false idea that has to be showing up sooner or later. So we're showing, oh, holy cow, this thing happened in my life now. I don't have control anymore. See, everything in life is really moving us to the idea or to the belief system of letting go. So you can't be predictable and be in allowance at the same time.
Got it.
They're two different things because the predictability is wanting it to go a certain way. That's what every struggle is, Mark. Every struggle is I wanted it to go this way, and yet it's going this way. And I don't like it. That's struggle, period. Because the resistance is, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, that perfectly defines my own life. More recently with my son and his accident and him getting hurt, I had a very specific vision. It was generalized, but there was this vision of he would grow up. He would, probably get involved with high school sports. He was super athletic and agile, and he's probably going to do martial arts. That's what I do, and he had a passion for that as a 3-year-old. And I saw this vision of him going to college, maybe playing college sports, who knows, and then going on and having a great life. And I was committed to facilitating that by just being a great dad. And I still get to try to be a great dad, but everything changed when he suffered his brain injury. And man, that threw my world on a different trajectory entirely. But, before we start this conversation, you said something interesting to me about how struggles are the reason that you've become stronger and that you've grown or expanded as a human being. So that's what I firmly believe. Without the struggle, we don't get stronger. Without resistance, you can't. Your muscles can't get stronger. You need something for them to push against.
Well, and you're right, and it is something that exists. It exists, so you have to learn how to use it. The best way that we can describe, or I can describe what we're talking about here, came in a movie. Have you ever seen the movie Evan Almighty?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Steve Carell, great little flick. But I mean, there were some points in that show that, if you were aware to them, were really, really big, and really had a lot of meaning to them, stuffed into the script. One of those points, Morgan Freeman played God, and it was the time where the wife had just left Noah at the time. Okay, and she just left, and she's in this restaurant ordering. The waiter is Morgan Freeman as God. And she's like, he asked how she was doing, I think, and she's like, I'm frazzled, I'm struggled. And she just, spills, as we have a tendency to do when we're caught in a moment. And she said, this is happening, why can't we just have a close family like what I want? And Morgan Freeman said, it's interesting. When people pray or ask for a close family, a strong family, do you think God, as he said in there, it comes down and just all of a sudden just boom, a happy family, strong family, secure? Or does he cause experiences that would cause them to become strong and secure through it? See, that's the thing. We all expect that this is what we want. We want it delivered, right in, put in, all done, gift wrap, perfect, everything the way we want it. And that's the prediction part. We want it all like this, like with your son. Of course you had that, as we as humans and as parents, I'm a father as well. You see things for your child and that type of idea. But that's part of the problem. Is because, yes, we have this ability to project into the future. But we have this ability also to be able to believe that that's what's going to happen. And the thing is it's not real. It hasn't happened yet. I mean, there's deeper we can go into, all collapse moments and everything else. But for this conversation, it hasn't happened yet. And so anything that is in the past or in the future is imagination, right? It's not happening right now.
Yeah.
Well, is imagination real? I always say if you can put Bugs Bunny into the picture, it ain't real.
Right.
And so what we're doing is we're projecting, we're building this future in our mind, which is an illusion, which is an illusionary space, which is imagination. Very useful to create some things and so forth. But if we actually peg this is what it's supposed to be like, we set a parameter or a limitation parameter. Because any time it's now not going to meet that is a source of resistance. It's a limitation. So I want to get to work fast, and I haven't done that in years and years and years, but I want to drive because I got to be at a certain time, and I'm driving to work, and you're frazzled because why? Because you have this goal you've set, your focus is on that, it's all about just the destination, and that is what supposedly is going to make us happy. Mm-hmm. So that label on that situation is this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, and so all holy books and all holy texts have certain wisdom in them. And it's funny because our expectation, even in the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done. Mm-hmm. Not yours. But we've got this idea in our head that we can plan and do everything. We control everything. And so life is continually, lovingly teaching us lessons that that's not the truth. And to get okay with allowing the moment to be what the moment is, let go and go for the ride. Mm-hmm. Then flow happens. But consistently, if we're saying, and I'm not saying you don't, plan and, but it's our attachment to that, having to go that way and having to have that destination that creates the struggles that we have to go through to teach us in the end to let go, and we're not the ones that control it. Mm. You look at a tree, like nature, right? Beautiful, gorgeous, but in a storm, does it hold on to its branches? Does it not sway because I don't want to lose things? Mm-hmm. Or does it fully trust? And in the end, the next year, it blossoms again. Mm-hmm. See, we have this fixated idea that we know what's best for us in the moment. And it's a false idea. And, in my own life, there's so many myriads and myriads of points of contention with that I know what I'm doing. A lot of times, the most valuable things in my life, the most valuable moments are the ones that I would have turned away and not gone through if I would have had the choice.
Well, that's a perfect segue. Why don't you share with us, maybe let's talk about a couple of them, maybe.
Okay, yeah, I've got lots, as everybody does.
Unpack one for us.
Let's unpack one of the gifts that keeps on giving in my life. I have many of them, but at first it didn't. I didn't see the gift, and that's where the gift usually is when we don't see it, and the wrapping is all the wrong color for us. It's part of that mechanism of trying to control what we want over what we can learn. Our fixation versus our growth. Mm-hmm. And lovingly, the universe continually provides for our growth, which is the only real important thing, while we strive to be able to fill everything else in instead of our growth that limits it. So one of the experiences that I had, I grew up in a very tight-knit religious community, Jehovah's Witnesses. My wife did as well. And when I was about 25, 26 years old, which I'm 47 now, which is a ways away, we left. And in doing that, we decided it wasn't for us anymore, organized religion in that way. And when we left in that way, both sides of our family, my wife's family and myself, viewed us as what they call apostates, because we were baptized at the time. We left. We made the decision we're in cahoots with the devil, and so they shun us, and they have since then. And yes, it sounds so Amish, and yes, it is 2017, but their belief system is that which, if you don't believe what they believe, and you've at once said you did, then you're bad company. And so for me, losing family in an airplane crash or in a big car crash where they're all gone would be one thing. And that would be incredible to get over in a lesson. However, the other side of it is actually having them make the decision to turn their backs. And I mean, literally turn backs. I mean, if I see my sister in the store or any of my, nephews or nieces or anything, right? They will make a face that's hard because it's painful for them, where none of us are fighting. It's just over that belief. And they'll turn around and walk away. And it's meant as my sister once said, a timeout by God to teach me, and my wife and so forth. And yes, it has taught, but not in the way that they had hoped. It taught me a lot about freedom and a lot about sacrifice, the payment of that. To be able to go through that, my mom and I talked every day for my whole life. Even when I'd go away somewhere, I'd phone her at night or whatever and just say, hey, it's me. And for the last 2 years of her life, we didn't see each other or talk. And it was not by my decision. It was by hers. And it was my growth to be able to learn how to accept their decision. And that's a hard thing, because if you don't feel that way, I forgive right now. If they walked into my life right now and said, okay, we want to change things, we would be done. So the gift for me was to be able to let go and to realize the importance, that's not the right word, the value. There we go. The price and the value really of my own spiritual freedom. Own free will.
Well, let me ask you something. You said that if they walked back into your life right now, you'd be okay with that?
Yeah, 100%.
You wouldn't be pissed off at all, like?
I used to be. Yeah, I've gone through a myriad of different stages of growth through it. If 3-4 years ago, if you would have talked to me about it, I probably would not have been able to not hold the tears back and had some anger in there. But that's what the struggle is. It would not be a growth experience if I was able to meet it immediately, all cool. That wouldn't challenge me. It wouldn't take me beyond who I was at that time. Who I was at that time was hurt. It was happening to me instead of for me. Where through my growth now, I was able to use that philosopher's stone, use that tool, that gift that was given to me by life and by my family, to be able to hone myself, to be able to create a stronger, better version of Len, one that can let go, one that realizes the illusion of separateness, and one who needed to learn how to accept things versus forcing them to make work. And so how do you learn a valuable skill set, a character trait? How do you learn it if your resistance to it, or you're seeing it, you refuse to learn it otherwise? For me, I wasn't learning letting go. I was reading about it. I've been doing this intensely for over 25 years. But if you have a child and you brushing their teeth, and they just don't brush their teeth, you have to start teaching them, look, this is what's going to happen if you don't brush your teeth, right, over and over again. And if they continually don't brush their teeth, life will step in and show them that there's a cause and effect for absolutely everything. And so if you keep ignoring your lessons, lovingly, the all will come in and furnish a lesson that will teach you sooner or later.
And in my experience, the lessons become more painful the longer you delay learning.
Well, it's the same as our physical body works, Mark. I mean, okay, I cut myself, right? If that cut didn't hurt, as humans, the answer to this, when would we fix it?
You wouldn't.
When would we take control?
Let it
Tomorrow.
go.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll get to this because I'm doing this other thing. So it needs to hurt. It needs to hurt to get our attention. And if that cut doesn't get dealt with, it gets infected. And the hurt spreads. Why? To wake us up to look after the hurt. It's exactly what happens inside. Outside is just a mirror reality to what's going on inside of us. And so the lessons that we're getting in our life, because they're all different, they're ones that are tailor-made to what we need to learn. What we need to learn to be able to navigate our waters properly. You know, I love it. I heard this a while ago. It's supposed to be a Freemasonry song, "Row, row, row your boat." We've all heard it. But I mean, it really tells that we are mostly water, 71, 73%, 72, something like that. And we are the vessel that we roll through our life. And as we row, most of us are rowing just going. And they're out of sync, and they're just, well, if you've seen a boat down a stream doing that, the chaos that it would, and the wake that it leaves, it's what most lives are now. But that song teaches us, row, row, row our boat, what? Gently down the stream. And how are we to do that?
Merrily.
Why are we to do that? Merrily, merrily, merrily. Because life is meant to be happy.
Yeah.
And you're meant to gently roll down the stream, row down that stream, merrily, merrily, merrily. Why? Because life is but a dream. Mm. So, number one, we take our lives so seriously. And yet, the funny thing is we take our lives so seriously, but we're not serious about them. We take our lives seriously because everything has to be exactly the way we say it should be. But we don't take it serious because we have the order of our lives all backed up. All, half-assed backwards. Because the cart is before the horse. All holy books, all the way through, they all have a verse in them that is like the one in the Bible, like I'm going to say, and that is, seek first the kingdom and all else will be added to you. The real meaning to that is the kingdom is within. Seek that first. Because why? What comes in a struggle? What's the first thing that creates the struggle? What's the first thing that happens? Thought. Thought's the first thing that enters into it. It creates the experience. It's the beginning. Thought, word, deed. Thought. So if we seek the kingdom, inner kingdom first, and we look after our thoughts, we understand them, we deliberately create through our thoughts. The rest of the verse is all else will be added to you. Everything else will flow. Because if you don't do that, you're running around all day catching up with what your thoughts are telling you, dealing with what your thoughts are telling you about what's happening, who you are through it, if you can handle it or not, berating you, judging, all this kind of stuff that limits, that slows you up, causes resistance. If you put first that inner kingdom and deal with the understanding your thoughts and moving yourself through that way, all that resistance is gone or diminished.
Well, Len, what does that inner kingdom look like then? What do we do with that? If we seek that, how do we sort that out?
I first thing when you said that was a butterfly. It really looks like, but that's the makeup of her brain. But it's the two halves with the middle, right? But that's what it looks like. But what it looks like from an explanation point of view, so you can understand, it looks like a true understanding with what life is. An understanding between illusion and what we call reality, the world of matter. And sometimes the world of matter matters too much to us. It is the real, but it's created by the real inside first. The plans are inside here that emit out. So that kingdom inside is the ability to be able to not get swept away with ideas or thoughts that limit you. Being awake in your present moment and present. Not multitasking, doing 1,000 things. Then you see things about yourself in your moment that you're asleep to otherwise. You've ever seen in a grocery store the parent that loses it, looks at the child that's crying and, be quiet. And they yell it.
Right.
It's an incongruent statement. The child is actually obeying. They're obeying your state, not the words.
Right.
And that's what life does. Life obeys your state, not your words. It's a part, your words are a part of it, but your state is what actually moves your world. So if you're in a state of chaotic misunderstanding about what you're placing importance on and what you think is really what needs to happen and all this kind of stuff, you lose yourself because you're basing your whole plan on an illusion or a myth that you control all of it.
Well, how do we go from chaos to calm? How do we go from, I guess, that chaotic life that many of us are living with our thoughts? How do we get that smoothed out? How do we get centered? How do we get focused? How do we eliminate that?
Well, Mark, you hire me. No, I'm just kidding. I just
of course.
I'm just teasing, man. But no, it really is a process.
Okay.
Of growth. And you have to have the first understanding is an understanding of what a mistake is and understanding what perfection is. Perfection is not something as a destination. It is the process in of the whole. The process of your growth takes you looking at a situation, seeing it a certain way, walking through it, and be taught a lesson through the whole turmoil and chaos of the story. That whole thing, you falling, you hopefully getting back up and seeing the lesson, turning around, seeing the lesson, learning from it, becoming new. That's perfection. Why? Because in alchemists' terms, it turned lead into gold in a state-wise. It took you from a dark place of not understanding through something you fell with, a mistake that has to be, you have to make mistakes to learn. It's part of the process. So you fall, you get back up again, you see, you learn through perspective, and you become new. That whole thing that makes you grow, that is usually produced through, and your lessons ride in on the back of your experiences. So the experience, like for instance, if we go back to your kid, I mean, Helza, that's a big experience. That's a big lesson for you. Big lesson for him too, but big lesson for you. Huge, that keeps on giving.
Yeah, you bet it does.
Not one that's like, well, this is it, and that's it, Mark. You get through that gate, and you are golden. Well, you are because you grew through it, but the lead always shows up. See, that's what the alchemists really were doing in the Middle Ages and in antiquity. It wasn't about actual metals of lead into gold. They were actually transmuting dark, negative states within them, and through inner work and seeing things, putting principles in place and seeing through those principles, you diminish different states and the vibration you have with it. As an example, I get ticked off at something, I'm angry, or somebody freaks out at me and I get into it, I'm angry. That's a dark state that only can actually put out that same darkness. If I feel that inside and I take that where I go into meditation or I do some inner work inside myself and I see, hey, this isn't doing me or anybody else good. This isn't a solution. Where is it? And I move it to maybe I'm now curious about the problem instead of angry. Well, I have moved that state, that energy, from something that's dark, misunderstood, to something that's understanding it. Curiosity. Curiosity is a much higher state than anger. I transformed that one state into a higher state within myself. Now, when I go to speak, when I go to do anything, it's coming from a state of curiosity instead of coming from a state of anger. And so now the outside world is going to meet me at curiosity instead of at anger. See the power in that?
Yeah. Have you ever read the book Power versus Force
Yeah, David Hawkins, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
it's really what it's talking about.
yeah, and I mean, he just categorized different types of music or whatever, and how they impact you in a certain way, and some of them are truly positive and uplifting, and there's other ones that at a certain point or below, they like drag you down, they take you into a negative or a dark space. And so I don't know, that book came to mind as you were talking about this.
It's interesting, but I mean, the one thing that's not calculated in that is, and it has a play, is it's not just from it's how what it calls forth within you. So your experiences, like as an example, if you have somebody in their 70s that's listening to Metallica, as an example, just pulling it out of the sky, they might, because their experiences don't line up with it. Whereas when I was a teenager, I went to Metallica, I went to a concert, I have some really great memories with it. It is going to make me feel differently too. Now, there's a power and force that he was talking about that's within the vibration of the music itself, or the film, or the person, or the anything. And then there's also how we meet it and what our perception means to us. And that's really the perception part of it is such a valuable tool, because let's go back to when you were saying, like, how do you from into calm? How do you? It's our perception. It's the label that we put on the experience that creates how we experience the experience. I walk into a store. I see two hooded men with guns. Instantly, my mind's going to tell me, what does this thing mean to me? And out of the 400 billion bits of information that's going into me constantly, because I walk into that store and every little candy wrapper, every little light, every little everything, I'm taking in. I'm a camera. But I'm only taking in and consciously dealing with 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information. So either 5 or 9 bits, depending if it's a good day or not so good. Right? So at the best day, I'm taking in 9 bits. So I walk into that store, see 2 hooded men. Boom, there's one of my things. The next, I'm feeling something. There's 2 pieces of my consciousness. It gets taken up very quickly. So none of the other stuff that I'm going to be aware of. Okay? So I walk in, see that, and I get, whoa, go into combat role. But what if the guns were water pistols and what I couldn't see down the other aisle was the kid they were playing with, and it was Halloween? Totally different meaning. So I walk into that and I'm totally different during that. I meet that completely different. Why? Because I see it differently. It means something different to me. Our perceptions are the director of those experiences. So when we label things, we're telling ourselves how we want to experience that. So when we go into experience, not this again, means I got to experience it the same way as I experienced it last time, and I didn't like it then. Right? So you create these experiences.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Hey, everybody. If you go to markgoblowsky.com/7lessons and opt in, I will send you an awesome infographic that we created titled How Hard Times Made Me Stronger and the 7 Lessons I Learned Along the Way. This is powerful stuff straight out of my own life that will be invaluable to you. You'll also be on the first to know list for my new book, Strength Through the Struggle, which is going to be coming out soon. Now let's get back to the show. I'm thinking about the kids I teach martial arts to. And when I give them a certain exercise, you know, you can hear the groans and the moans coming. And and what I tell them in that moment, and most of them learn pretty quickly, and they grow, they mature, and they're like, oh, I could see this differently. I'm saying, you know what? You don't have to do this. You get to do it. Right. It's an opportunity for growth. You get stronger out of this. But if you take a look at it as like it's this burden and it's this overwhelmingly difficult thing, then yeah, of course you have this negative approach to it. You're probably going to compromise the quality of your effort, and you're never going to get out of it what you could have gotten.
And Mark, it's not the Pollyanna look of just being positive for that. It's not. It's scientific in the back. There's so many reasons for it. Number one is your own health. When you look at an opportunity like, I don't know what this really is. I don't know what this experience is really going to do for me because I'm just entering it. Let's go through the experience to see what it gives us first without labeling it. All of a sudden, no cortisone is released in my body or adrenaline because I'm not going, oh. So I'm saving myself on the chemical, physical level that way. But I'm also at the same time not red carpeting, what I call, my moment as to what it means.
Before you go on, when you say red carpeting the moment, do you mean assigning it more significance or power?
Or assigning it, period.
Anything.
Like, for instance, you red carpet it by the way that, like, here's an example. People won't know, but before our call this morning, we had technical issues, and I was like, I actually got my wife and my daughter to do something to the computer because it wasn't working for me, and the sound and stuff like that. And so in that moment, I have the experience of being able to label what's going on. Now, the one part of me inside is going, oh, man, I want to get all this done. And is this going to happen? And, but on the other side, I'm going, maybe this is happening for a reason. Maybe it's going to bring Mark and I even closer together. We'll have a good laugh. And maybe this will be the best piece of content ever. Mm-hmm. So I get to choose in that moment what's going to empower the forward movement of that experience. Okay, so I look at it. If I choose the one way to look at it from, why is this happening to me, blah, 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 my next moment attached to that is met with that energy. I throw the energy forward. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm asking then for more resistance and hardship, more struggle. Whereas if I pick and I go, no, this means to me that this is going to rise up somehow, then I start looking naturally. Remember, 400 billion bits of information, 7 bits of information plus or minus 2. Mm-hmm. So I start picking. Have you ever, if you buy a yellow car,
right?
All of a sudden you see yellow cars everywhere around you. Well, did they all buy at the same time as you? No, they were there before. Well, why didn't you see them? 400 billion bits down to 9 or 5. And so you only, but now because you're an owner, now you see it. Mm-hmm. So it's how your room inside grows. The more you expand and stop labeling, the more that a new, different, beneficial thing can come in. And if we look at every experience as our teacher, as something we can, as a student, learn from that experience on rising our tide that rises all ships around us, mm-hmm. then every experience, no matter what it is teaching us something. Now, that's easier said than done, but it's something that's what growth is all about, is growing to a point where you're not controlled by your circumstances, but you are your circumstances, and everything is for your growth. So when somebody freaks out at you, the growth that you're doing, the growth that you're being, it's not you that's freaking out, it's them. It's their experience, not yours. If I walk past in the grocery store, same as you, another kid, and they're having a tantrum, and I don't know the parent, I don't know the kid, I don't keep thinking about that after I go. It's gone. It's not my experience. It's not mine. Right? Buddha said, if somebody offers you a gift and you do not accept the gift, who does it belong to in the end? The person that gave it. Mm-hmm. So all these things make up your moment. The growth is very expansive. We could probably have 5 days worth of just talking straight about different character traits that we put in within ourselves and grow to, but they're all based on letting go of control, gently down that stream, merrily, 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 because life is but a dream. None of that is about attachment, is it?
No.
None of that says hold on to that plan that you have for your next moment, and like it's the last thing that you have. No, it's just gently rowing down your stream. The moment we get attached to a way that it has to happen is the struggle that we create for that.
I had no idea when we got on this call that the secret of life was wrapped up in that little nursery rhyme song thing.
No.
I mean, it really is powerful because I attach, so much meaning to somebody's actions, and I have no idea why they do what they do, honestly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can assign whatever meaning to it I want. Usually, it doesn't necessarily serve me because I'm getting frustrated or angry.
Yeah. But the frustrated and angry only comes because you're looking at what they're doing to you,
Yeah.
not for you.
Right.
If you've seen them instead as a complete mirror, and that's what you see in the outside world as, is a complete mirror, why would you get more frustrated with the mirror? You just see the mirror, take the lesson in, okay, thank you. But it has nothing to do with you. If they want to jump up and down and scream and yell and and that takes into not just that kind of a tantrum. It takes into all different kinds. Our spouse coming home tired and snubbing or whatever the heck it is. Like it doesn't matter. It's that we instantly we have a choice in that moment. Sometimes you have to create and work on creating that gap for a choice because we're so into reaction. But the goal of it is to look and see that person is them, not you. You have no control over what another does. You only control what you do, what you emit. And if you look after what you control, your focus, where you're paying your attention, if you control that really well, it controls everything else. See, if that person's freaking out on me, I'm not bothered by it. I'm like, hey, how's that working out for you? Man, I hope you feel better soon.
Right.
Things will turn around. This too shall pass. It doesn't affect me because I have no control. If that's the way that they're choosing in the moment, that's what their free will allows them to do. Why am I going to interfere with their free will? They can do whatever they want. This is a free society in that way. But me labeling, you shouldn't be doing that, immediately is a reminder because we can feel it inside of us, right? It doesn't feel good.
No, I'm
All of a
pissed
sudden
off.
it constricts.
Yeah.
That's the sign. That's the sign. Oh, hold on. My perception's off. I should be feeling good. I should be feeling free. If I'm not feeling free, if I'm not feeling good, I have created my own prison by what I see this experience means to me. And if you create a different experience, I had somebody I was working with quite a while ago, and they were going through divorce. And it was a really harsh experience for them because they were seeing this as, oh, my mate did this happened, this, all this kind of stuff. And I'd known them for a while, and I said, well, but when's the last time you were truly happy? Oh, I can't even remember when. I'm like, really? So you must be pretty excited then about the gift that you've just been given. And they're like, what are you talking about? Len's gone off his rocker again. But see, what they don't realize is they've been asking for this freedom for a long time. And as soon as they realize that this is actually the gift that they've been wanting and asking for, and they have a choice of how they go through it, and that this doesn't have to be a bad thing. This can be actually the best thing for them because now it gives them the freedom. Have you ever wanted to do things, but you've been married for the last 16 years and you couldn't do them because of the marriage and everything else or the whatever the mate? You can do them now. And all of a sudden he started thinking, he's like, whoa, it's a clean slate. I can go travel. I can do this. I can do that. I'm like, yeah, it's the gift. And instantly when he was able to, in his own experience, see the other side of it, instantly his anger started going away because he's seen why this is happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being attacked here. I'm being gifted. I just don't see the gift. And so when he was helped to see the gift, all of a sudden, 2-3 days later, the divorce was put in the mail, done, no lawyers, no nothing. They were really just amicable, and the smile he posted on a social media network, it was such an authentic, peaceful smile and just happy because he accepted what was going on and looked for the gift in it. looked for where it was benefiting him. You see, in a struggle, the only thing that makes it a struggle is you're looking for where it's attacking you, with the belief that it's not supposed to be there. If you switch it around and say, this is exactly what's supposed to be happening, yeah, I may not feel like I like it inside, but I'm going to, instead of getting involved in it that way, I'm going to search for things that I can learn about myself in it. I can start searching for these secret meanings that come to me versus me labeling them. If I label them, they struggle, but they'll become that to a certain extent. If I actually instead wait for them to teach me, become the student, not no way I know it all already what this is. Enter like a new baby. A baby doesn't know anything of a belief system there. So everything is taken brand new and wow. Right? I love U2's the song Kite. At the end of it, they have the verses, and it's life should be fragrant, rooftop to the basement. Mm-hmm. And it is already. It's just what label we're putting on it. Is life happening for us, building us up, taking us higher? Or is life trying to beat us down and make us a victim? The choice is always ours as to what to perceive it, and that's the most loving thing. Because in the end, it all is just a dream. And so whatever choice, whatever path you're on, the most famous saying, I love this saying so much. It was supposed to be, I think I mentioned, it was supposed to be on the back of King Solomon's ring.
Oh, okay.
Right, wisest man, yeah. And the story goes that he sent one of his best friends out and said, I want a saying. I want something that when a happy man reads it, it makes him sad. And when a sad person reads it, it makes them happy. So that's like a little bit of a task. So his friend went out and tried to find this thing that would do this. 7 years later, comes back with the impossible, saying, I found it. This one saying makes a happy person sad and a sad person happy. What it was, Mark, was this too shall pass. Mm. And that goes for our good times. And it goes for our bad times.
Yeah.
It is all just a stream. And if we're gently rolling through all of it, it just flows. But the things that we see as bad are always have the good in it. Just the yin and the yang. Notice the yin and the yang. The yang is in the yin and the yin is in the yang. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it's teaching you. It's teaching you that within every experience that you're labeling as bad, there's good for you there. There is a gift for you in there. If you only look for the bad, yellow car syndrome, you'll only see the bad. Whereas if you start opening yourself up and going, I don't know what this experience is. I'm going to endeavor to experience this experience brand new, without the labels on it. And how it makes me feel through the experience, whatever way it sways me in that way, I'm going to gently go and treat myself well through it, not compromise myself, not allow myself to be swayed into either way or either major feeling. And I'm going to use a word here, I'm going to swim through this equanimously. Mm-hmm. Something called equanimity.
Right.
Your brain is in two halves. You're supposed to ride the middle. Ride the middle wave is equanimity, which is not labeling this way, not labeling that way, but going through with my own label on it, which is just experience. Be with the experience in the moment, open, not in my mind, not planning, not analyzing, not, oh, should it be this, should it be that, is it this, is it that? None of that. I'm here. I'm with you sitting talking in this podcast. I'm not thinking about my next call or someone else I'm talking to or things I have to do later in the day, or I'm here. I'm all here. So that means that I'm not multitasking. I'm not cutting up those consciousness bits for other things so that I'm leaving myself less and less and less time. So that when I'm talking to my spouse or I'm talking to my kid, I'm doing stuff on my phone and talking to them. No, if I'm completely with them, what they will feel from that presence is love. Because, and that's what's happening to our society a lot. We're very, very, very seldom present with what we're doing. with what's really going on. We're in our heads living through the real experience through our imagination. And that's called excess potential. It's all that potential that we could be creating with and doing, but we're spending it in a space of imagination that's like building sandcastles where we know that the tide is going to come in and wash it away the next day. Mm-hmm. And we just have to keep building and building again. And then we're frustrated. This never works out for me, or this always happens, or yeah, it does, because you're doing the same things as you've always done with it. You're seeing it the same way as you've always seen it. Where you're making it into the same experience as always by the way that you see that experience.
I've got a question. You
No.
just you just mentioned that when we're fully present, then what the other person can experience is love. And I absolutely 100% agree with that. I'm wondering, you said part of our problems in this modern life is that we're living in our imagination. If we're not living there, if that's not the best place, where should we be living at or from?
The real moment that's happening.
Just the
right
moment,
now.
Right now.
Just the moment. To be an example is, whatever I'm doing in the moment, whatever task it is that I'm doing at hand.
Got it.
Fully involved with it. I'm not in my mind thinking, doing, being something else at the same time as this. I'm just doing this. If I'm on a phone call, if I'm with a client, love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. And when you do, that's what they feel, is that love. And so when you're in your head, you're not there in the real moment that's happening. That's why people, they'll trip and they'll fall. They'll sometimes get into a car accident. They'll do all these different things. They'll say what they don't mean exactly. The reason is because they're not fully in their moment. Mm-hmm. They're in their heads. So that 7 or 9 bits of information, or that 5 or 9 bits of information that consciously they can take care of, is eaten away. So they're not really living life. They're living a facsimile, an illusionary facsimile of life. And that's why there's no fulfillment in it. It's not real. You're having a conflict with your spouse or your child or your boss or whatever, and you're in your head driving or wherever you are. They're not there, but you're dealing with it in your head. You're talking to them. You're going through what happened. You're replaying things. You're creating, what am I going to say to this person? How am I going to fix this thing? And at the end of it, when you're finished your drive, when you're doing whatever, and you stop thinking about it, what has been accomplished? Mm-hmm. Absolutely nothing in the real world. Mm-hmm. And because it's illusion, absolutely nothing there except more negative charge, more importance placed on that conflict, more focus to grow the conflict. But nothing positive can happen in your mind that way. So when you're driving, you're driving. You're fully attent on the road, on the drive that you're doing. You're in your body. You're feeling present to yourself. Sometimes the best way to be able to feel present is to be able to stop and feel the sensations in your body that's happening in the moment. Feel the seat that I'm on. Okay, and it grounds us and brings us back to that moment. So some of us are so in our minds that we've lost touch with reality.
About 30 years ago, I read a book called Way of the Peaceful Warrior.
Yes.
By Dan Millman. And
Yep.
I started studying his stuff. And
Dan's a good guy, yeah.
He's a great guy. He's actually going to be on the show this year.
Nice.
And I remember one of the exercises that I was going to a training, and this may be in the book as well, but this was a little assignment to simply tie your shoe without thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
And it was literally a mind-blowing experience to be completely present in the simple act of tying your shoe. And it's simple, but it's not an easy task to be completely involved with that shoe or that plate that you're washing or the food that you're cutting or chewing or anything. It's just, it changes everything. Because there is no future, there is no past in that ever blossoming present moment.
Yeah. And what most people are trying to do is trying to get on to the next moment that's more important than the moment they're in. And that gives them that feeling of trying to squeeze the bud of a flower to make it grow faster.
Right.
Doesn't work. Yeah. Doesn't work. And so that's where society is distracted, unfulfilled, and unhappy. That's why depression and anxiety are going nuts. Where does depression and anxiety happen? In our minds.
Yeah.
So they're spending all their time there. It's too much time, too much excess potential. They've built worlds that are in there that are illusionary, and that doesn't feed them with any reality, right? So you're right. I mean, mindfulness is what we're really talking about, but it's not that your mind is really full. It's more empty, an allowance of that moment, being with the moment, not having to pressure to be a certain way. It is the most productive any human can be. I'll take a multitasking person and someone that can do a bunch of stuff and line them up to somebody that's completely present, completely being, just being in their moment, not in their head. And the productivity from the being person will far outweigh the other, because the other will be making mistakes all the way through it, forgetting stuff, doing all this. They'll have to do it again. They'll just so much energy used. Versus the person that's right there slows down and does it properly.
Let me ask you one last question, because I could stay here all day talking about this, but I actually have to teach a class like in a few minutes, which I'm going to be late for, but that's okay. I'm going to live in the present moment.
There you go.
I want to know how often Zen Len lives in the present moment, and does he get off track?
100% get off track. There's no perfection in the way of people seeing perfection. Like there's like,
right.
We were talking about the monks at the start.
Right.
Right. I mean, okay, if you want to go up into a mountain, but even then you're still going to be rocked a little bit by things. Mm-hmm. Maybe a lion will come in, maybe something, a bear, it's something will rock you, because we can't grow. The diamond doesn't grow by having everything beautiful. No, it's the pressure creates the diamond, but the diamond doesn't resist the pressure. The diamond uses the pressure to become valuable. And that's the goal, where you have to become a student in life instead of always thinking we're the teacher. So does Len fall off? Yeah, constantly. That's what my growth is when I notice, oh, hold on, I am not being present right now. It's time to bring myself present again and then move forward. So it's a constant beingness. It's not something that you learn and you are evermore. I always say, and to much respect to Ram Dass, I love his work, but Ram Dass is in a wheelchair. Yeah. Right? I say that because the man's been teaching for 30, 40 years at least, and yet he still has challenges. Mm-hmm. The myth is that we're trying to run away from the challenges, yet the challenges are the gift. Challenges are the reason we're here, is to be able to convert those challenges into love. That's the reason why we're made from what we are. We're carbon-based beings. We're conduits for this energy. We're meant all to be alchemists, changing that dark into light, then expressing the light. And when we do that, and we're present to that, present our experiences to how we are and how we're being in our moments, magic happens. Magic turns on, the spark turns on, and life actually starts participating with you. Because if you think you're it, you know all, and you're driving your whole life, where does that universe, that life, that power, where does it play then? You're doing everything. Our job is only to control our focus, which puts us in the moment. See, if we're focused, boom, on our real moment, and that's all we're doing with our focus, real moment, everything else, remember, seeking first the kingdom, that is it. In our moment, everything else is added to us. That's when the flow happens. We're in that moment, we're there, boom, all of a sudden there's no resistance. And we gently get to row down that stream merrily, 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 without attachment and importance, and this is the way it's got to be for my better. I'll leave you with one last point. Most of the most valuable experiences I've been through in my personal life have been experiences I wouldn't have chosen to walk through when I looked at them, because I looked at them as being hard. Going through them, I went through hard because that's the way I chose, but I still learned through them, and I was lifted up through it. That's love. That process is love. Being able to become better versions of ourselves through the things that life gives us always. Then we're always growing.
Amen, brother. There could not be a better place for us to stop. That's the exclamation point on this whole conversation.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough, Len. Man, you brought it, and you challenged me, reminded me, and you taught me throughout this whole hour that we spent together here. Plus the 20 minutes before, with all our technical difficulties, where we were getting the chance to practice our living in the moment and not attaching meaning like this stupid mic or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I really, it's been a pleasure. I mean, honestly, you say you could keep on talking all day, and really, yeah, it's been a pleasure, Mark. You're an awesome guy, and I want to say to you too that the challenges and struggles that you've had, with your son and with your child. I mean, you've traversed the water in a way that's definitely making you better. So, hats off for that. I mean, it does take strength through that struggle.
Well, I appreciate that, Zen Len. Could you tell us how to connect with you, or where we could go to touch your work?
Smoke signals are great. No, ZenLenCoaching.com. And there's podcasts, and there's some content on there. And if you feel, an urge to be able to talk further or talk about specific areas in your life to be able to lift higher, or how to see them differently to be able to lift higher, by all means, reach out. I'm very accessible, and I love meeting new people and showing them how to be able to live a different way, one that gently allows them to row down that stream merrily.
Yeah, very good. Friends, I hope you're going to connect with Len Wright, or Zen Len. And man, it's just been such a pleasure. And one more time, brother, I want to thank you.
Hey, you too, man.
We've come to the end of this episode, but we have more exclusive content, videos, and show notes for our listeners over at strengththroughthestruggle.com. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast listening service. Join in on the next episode of Strength Through the Struggle for more inspiring stories of heart and hope. Until then, never give up.